Today is Saturday, the 4th of February 2023, and we are all gathered here for the 68th session on mindfulness for beginners. And on behalf of all of the participants, I would like to welcome with much respect Venerable Bante, Homagama Dhamma Kusala Thero, to today's session. And I would also like to welcome all of us who are participating through the Zoom session as well as through the uh, Facebook live stream of the Satipasala Foundation Facebook webpage. So with that, I would also provide a quick summary of the session lineup. We will start off with in-session mindfulness to get everyone focus built up into the session, and then we will move on to the question and answer session where we present written and verbal questions and statements to Bante for Bante's advice. Then we will move on to the slight introduction to beginners for commencing their mindfulness practice. Plus, after that, we will move on to the talk on mindfulness scheduled for today. So, with that, I would like to invite Venerable Bante to commence with the in-session mindfulness scheduled for today. Over to Bante. Much merits.
Good day, everyone. So I think today we can take some time to practice mindful walking. I think last week we did mindful sitting session. So today we can take some time to practice mindful walking, right? For this, you need to have some space where you can walk back and forth, probably like 10 to 15 feet would work, right? You select this space. You make sure that there are no obstacles. Once you have that path cleared, you start walking. You walk in a comfortable manner. You have your eyes open and you try to be mindful that you are walking. That's what we are going to do. We walk in a comfortable manner while being aware, while paying attention. And when we do that, maybe initially you might not feel anything, but with time you may start to notice that your body is walking. It's walking and you can feel the sensations of your walking body. Maybe you feel the texture of the ground that you are walking. Maybe it is a wooden floor. Maybe it is tiled. So you can observe these sensations while walking and try to be mindful about that process. Time to time, various other things may come. Thoughts may appear. Various sounds may appear. Your attention might go to surrounding things that you see. But again and again, we try to be aware. Again and again, we try to be mindful that we are walking. Again, you might feel that your body is walking. You can observe these sensations. Maybe it's the heel that is touching first. Maybe the toes are touching. So you simply try to observe these bodily sensations while walking. Various thoughts, images, then sounds from the surrounding. Allow them to come and go freely. We allow it and we try to be aware. Time to time, again and again, you feel the body. So that's the practice we are going to do. It's a simple activity. You can start walking and you can pay attention that you're walking. So as a group, let's try to spend some time trying to practice mindful walking. Okay, everyone, that's about 10 minutes of mindful walking. Now you can come back to your seats. So this is just to give you an idea, so you can practice on your own. And with that, Namanta, you can take over.
Thank you very much, Bhante. So that is the end of the in-session practice, and now I would like to invite Sonali to conduct the Q&A session, commencing with the written report received for today's session. Over to Sonali. Thank you.
Avasarai Bhante. Thank you, Namanta. We have received only one report today. I will start with the first report. There were no formal practice sessions during the last week due to traveling to Sri Lanka with two brothers to organize our father's 3 months Vana and Dana. However, due to the regular formal practice in the last several months, the mindful moments arose from time to time. Mindfulness during the day. It was an extremely busy week, so much to organize for the Vana and Dana. Noted that the usual cushion of patience was wearing thin. Walked away from a couple of discussions with others in order to clear the stressful energy erupting. This is an example of mindfulness arising and taking more healthy options. Then the daily power cuts brought other complications. Lack of sleep due to organizing two events contributed mostly to the reduction in patience. Then came the awareness of how our dad had dealt with different life events, both positive and others not so positive. He had this can-do attitude and was able to delegate work when others were available. He had patience, kindness, and managed to get things done with no complications, even when help was not available. We have so much to learn from the way Dad lived his life. The control freak part of the mind was getting out of control from the week before coming to Sri Lanka. However, there were moments of clarity too. Noted that the fear of unknown was a trigger for the agitation in mind. The two events went well, and as planned, all the collective efforts paid off. Made time after the Dana to call a Dhamma friend in the UK. This discussion was really helpful in recognizing yet again how events unfolded was so different from how they were perceived before arrival in Sri Lanka. Most of the concerns, agitation, worry were wasted energy. Become well aware of this reality during the discussion with the Dhamma friend. She shared how she practices and had been during the week. There arose a motivation and determination to write this report for Saturday's session, even though formal practice was not possible this week. Main learning from the past week was the difference between the expectations of how things would be and how different and actual events were. Also learned again that worrying about things that were beyond my control was such a waste of time, and that it contaminates the mental and physical energy. Dear Bhante, looking forward to your feedback. Much merit to the organizers of the program. End of report.
Okay, now when you practice, let's say the formal meditation, time to time you don't get opportunity to continue with your practice. Sometimes various life events come. When they come, you have to deal with them. You can't avoid. You can't tell them that you have to practice. Instead, you have to deal with the situation. You have to deal with the life. So that's how we can progress. Time to time, these occasions come. And it's a good test for your mindfulness. It's a good test for the practice that you have done. Because initially, these situations you can't manage. Now you see the potential. Now you see the ability that among this chaos, you can manage it. Still, certain occasions it goes out of control. Still, certain occasions you make mistakes, but you are progressing. That's the idea of the practice. In a way, the mindfulness that we practice as walking, sitting, meditation comes into play when we face the fear of unknown, when unknown situations come, when unplanned situations come, when disappointment come, then you can really check the mindfulness that you have been practicing. It's a good check for your practice. So these occasions, we can use them to experiment with our practice. We can use them to see how strong our practice is. So these things, you have to take them as opportunity, right? Of course, the situation is risky. Of course, the situation is chaos. Of course, the situation is unknown. But still, you take them as opportunities to practice. Every time you feel friction in your mind, every time you feel agitation, every time you feel sad, anger, these occasions are occasions of practice. These occasions, you can use them to practice mindfulness. If there's friction, when I say friction, it's like more like a common name. And sadness, worrying, agitation, everything, it's the friction. When we feel the friction, it's an opportunity for us to practice. When we feel the friction, we know something is there. We can observe, we can identify what's the reasoning behind this, why this friction is happening. Okay, I expected something, but it didn't go that way. That's the reasoning for friction. Or somebody didn't react as I expected. So that's the reason for friction. That way you can really investigate within. Every time you feel friction, it's an opportunity for you to practice and investigate what's happening. So that way, we can gradually keep up with our practice. It's not only formal practice. These occasions, when you are unable to meditate, when you are unable to do the formal practice, these occasions are important for you to check the strength of the mindfulness that you have developed. So take them as opportunity and try to focus on your practice. And it helps to discuss with somebody. So this discussion, it's another form of, discussing with the practitioner. And you have personal contacts. You can discuss with them, the friends who are practicing. You can discuss the aspects of the practice with them. So that way, we keep our motivation high with the help of a discussion, with the help of a friend, or with the help of a book even. At certain occasions, you can even use a book to encourage yourself. A book about practice and discussing about the practice. Those things are important. That way, you have to keep your motivation up. And with time, you realize you develop the ability to sustain your practice. Initially, you need outside help. That's why we are having these discussions. That's why we meet weekly. Initially, you need that support. But with time, you realize you build this strength. You develop this strength. And you can even help somebody else. For that, you don't have to wait till you finish the practice. Instead, you can simply try and help somebody while you are practicing. You can simply introduce this concept of mindfulness to somebody, not from the books. Instead, let them experiment with it. Guide them through a mindful walking session. Guide them through a mindful sitting session. And that way, you can teach them, okay, this is the practice. This is the practice as from my experience, and you can try. That way, you can be a friend, a kalyana mitra to somebody else. So that's how we can gradually progress. This way, you can continue your practice. And with time, you realize you are developing more and more strength in this area.
Thank you, Bhante. Since we have only one report today, we can open for questions now. If anyone has a question, please raise your Zoom hand. I will let you unmute yourself and ask a question. I can't. Gihanta, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you, Sonali. Bhante, my question is sort of related to application of mindfulness in daily life. Would you say that by developing our mindfulness more and more, and maybe sort of being able to then identify negative states of mind and not interact and engage with them, like say, whether it's aversion or lust or anxiety, all these states, and by moving away, are we actually able to exert more control over our consciousness? Are we able to direct our consciousness towards more positive things? Dhamma, we say that there is no me, I, and all of that, and everything is sort of happening, and we have no control. But on the other hand, with mindfulness, are we able to exert greater control over consciousness for a more positive outcome? Not necessarily in the spiritual life. Yes, absolutely, that's what this class is for. But even in our daily livelihoods, work, family situations, and make it very practical that way. Thank you, Bhante.
Of course, you can use controlling your mind. Of course, you can try. That's why we are practicing. That's the idea. But let's say initially, if our mindfulness is not strong enough, although we know this is how we should react, although we know this is the correct thing to do, we are unable to meet those expectations. We are unable to do them because we get lost in thoughts and emotions. The reptilian mind takes over. That's because our practice is not strong enough. So you have to clearly know where you should start. You should start in the formal practice. You should do walking practice, sitting practice. It should be a part of your daily schedule. That's how you can gradually start your practice. You are strengthening your mindfulness. It's like strengthening a muscle and going to a gym practicing, right? So that way, when you do it for a few months, few weeks, then you realize the muscle is stronger. With that stronger ability, you can try and take control over situations. It's not like probably it's better to say that developed practice will take over the reptilian mind. It's not that you are controlling. Instead, you don't feel that type of strength in that in those thoughts, emotions. You are able to control them. You are able to manage the situation. That gradual process is important. Otherwise, we don't need the practice. No, we can say just be mindful and try to do the proper thing. But that doesn't work. That's the issue. Although we know these are the correct things to do, although we know this is how we should react, it's not happening. So that repetitive practice, that formal practice helps. Based on that formal practice, you get more and more strength in your faculty of awareness. With that stronger faculty, you can deal with these thoughts, emotions, right? A few weeks back, a foreigner, he came and said probably like 3 days. He started saying, Bhante, I'm an atheist. And he was asking, now I have these memories, past incidents, difficulties, thoughts, wounds probably in my mind. And when it hurts, it creates friction. And he is asking, can this practice eliminate these memories, thoughts? He's asking, can we eliminate with the practice? That's not possible. Instead, what happens is that these thoughts, emotions, they lose their energy. The thoughts, emotions will be there. As long as you are living, as long as you are a human, you will have these thoughts, emotions. But they will lose their strength. That's the change that will happen with the formal practice, right? When they lose their strength, it doesn't matter whether they are there or not. So many thoughts, emotions are there. They don't have that much of a strength. So we don't complain about them. Every moment, so many sounds come and go. Every moment, so many thoughts come and go. We don't even notice them because they don't have that much of a strength. When they don't have strength, it doesn't matter to us. Let's say anger, let's say lust. These things, they are powerful. When they come, then we complain. We try to find a solution. So the solution is you can't really deal with these things. Instead, you have to make sure that you are practicing properly. You have to make sure that you are focusing on the formal practice. With that practice, you can gradually develop this ability, gradually develop this strength. That's the idea. Otherwise, if I advise you to go and deal with your thoughts, emotions, that's not possible. That's difficult, right? Because they have so much power, so much control over you. So what you can do is gradually develop this formal practice. While developing, you can see how the practice is helping you to deal with these things better. We say happiness is a choice. Why? Because we have this ability to choose a certain thing. Let's say to practice mindfulness, you have that ability. You can choose to practice. You can allocate some time daily, probably let's say 20-30 minutes. You can allocate. And with that allocation, you can really choose this practice over something else. So that's a choice. In addition, let's say every time you get various, let's say thinking mind is there. Now you can encourage this thinking. That is the usual process that is happening, right? We prefer encouraging that thinking process. But you have an option, you have a choice to come back to the present moment. You have a choice to come back to the breath. You have a choice to come back to the steps that you are walking, if you are walking. You have a choice to come back to the activity that you are doing. So that's a choice, right? You don't encourage the thinking mind. Instead, you come back. So that way, you keep practicing. With that ability, we gradually develop this. So my advice is twofold. Initially, you have to focus on the formal practice. Then gradually you can see how we are able to better manage the thoughts, emotion. It's not like we are going directly dealing with thoughts, emotions. That's not possible. It's like, going to fight against a bull. That's not possible. Instead, you avoid this bull. Instead, you do some other training first. When you are ready, you can feel that now I am becoming little by little stronger. So that's the idea I want to give.
Thank you, Bhante. Absolutely. So just to give you a practical example, so even this morning, I had a thought of anxiety come into my mind. There was a thought of lust that came into my mind, but normally without kind of getting dragged into it, using the sort of skills that are being taught in this class, I was able to just look at it and just observe and not get engulfed in it. And then over time, it just it went. They just disappeared, like because of change. Yes, I focused on the breath, for instance. So not a formal meditation process, but I was just observing my thoughts. And then a final point, though, is that it's interesting. So absolutely, I feel that through more awareness, you cannot engage with the lust, you cannot engage with the aversion or anxiety or worry, and you can sort of come back to a more kind of neutral state. But then to your point about thought, I feel in my life, you're right. Again, thoughts can be very distracting, and one has to move away from thoughts or at least not indulge. But when you have to make a decision, or when you have to take a course of action, you have to use the faculty of thought to decide on a choice that you have to do. So I feel that thoughts are really important. But yes, there's this fine line of not getting dragged away, but at the same time, analysis or some sort of decision making is needed to act in life. Thank you, Bhante. Your thoughts would be most welcome, and I will stay silent after that. Thank you.
Okay, the faculty of wonder. True. Let's say certain people, they really appreciate this faculty. So it's represented as a bird flying out of man's point, right? Faculty of wonder. So that usually we think that's the greatest capacity in this human mind. That is the worldly thought, right? Worldly people, they believe this is the greatest capacity. But as practitioners, we say, no, faculty of awareness is the greatest capacity, not the wonder. Of course, certain occasions you have to make decisions. When you work, when you maintain your business, when you deal with your family, you have to use this. We are not against that, but we say, now there are certain people, they overthink. Overthinking will only bring you suffering, nothing else. You can think and make decisions, that's fine. But certain point is there. When you cross that point, then it creates friction, right? It creates friction. So certain diseases, even like mental issues, for example, let's say the OCD, for example, right? Then they feel that thinking process is taking over, right? So these things are there, but of course you have to use it. Of course, we are not preventing you from using it, but gradually you realize the human capacity, the best faculty is faculty of awareness, not the wonder. That realization will come with the practice, right? You know that you are thinking. That's identified as a superpower. You know that you are angry. That's identified as a superpower. So this faculty is man's highest capability, right? So gradually, when we practice, we realize that you know you are aware, but you are not reacting. Like a mountain, not out of ignorance. You are aware, but you are not reacting. That ability is the quality of Buddha that we are talking about. So try to continue with your practice, and gradually we can have this discussion again, and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Bhante. Most grateful.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Gihanta, for your question. I can see Hiranti has been waiting quite patiently. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I just want to ask Bhante. I had a text by somebody accusing me of that I am ignoring his wife and hasn't talked to her for so long. But this was untrue, merely because I have been very busy. So at once, this is something I have noticed. I react instantly. I sent another text saying, it's not because of that. I just sent like that, reply to the person. Then he said, no, I know why you didn't, merely because somebody has told something. He was just assuming. So I just left it like that. I thought the best way to deal with such things is to take my time and then just to ignore it. And when the time comes to explain to them, I'm very, very busy. Therefore, I haven't got time to have just chats like that, because the person who wrote is in Sri Lanka and I'm in UK. So I have a very busy life. And also, I just don't want to be wasting my time because of the little time I have for my practice and for other things. So I just left it without responding. Is that the right way, Bhante, please? Should I just, but it does bother me. That is the main thing. Did I do the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? All these questions are in my mind, and they come, most of the time in my mind. I just want your advice, please, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for presenting that question, because these questions are very common, right? These issues are very common. Every time when something happens, people come and complain. Right? They say, you didn't respond to my email, or you ignored me, something like that they will say, right? So these things are common, right? So it's good that we know the proper way to answer, right? Usually what happens is that we swiftly reply. Immediately we want to answer. Immediately we want to correct ourselves. Immediately we want to tell them our reasoning. That's the usual urge we will get, right? But when we practice, as you mentioned, you develop some kind of a patience. You think that when the proper time comes, you can answer, right? You keep it on the waiting list. What I am suggesting, that's more like intermediate practice, right? Then when the practice grows, when you develop your own confidence, you don't have to even answer these things. Time will answer, not you. Time will answer. They will get the proper idea with time. For that, you have to have patience. For that, you have to have confidence. For that, you have to have that strength. Otherwise, you can allocate your entire day trying to explain to people, trying to reason out your things. Still, they won't understand. That's the funny thing, right? You take your whole day, you try to explain, but still, they are on the same viewpoint. They won't understand. And with the additional information that you provide in the process, they will figure out more and more things to justify their reasoning. So that's how the world works, right? So what you have to do, the best thing you have to do is allow the time to answer the questions. Just keep them on the waiting list. If you have confidence in yourself, let's say somebody is accusing you, calling you a fool or something, right? Let's say, true, sometimes I do stupid things. Probably you are right, right? Then for that response, you should have confidence in you. If you are inferior, then of course you can't respond that way. You want to justify yourself. You want to prove that you are smart. You will take out your certificates, right? That's how you do. But when you have confidence in you, when you have that strength, you don't need that type of answering. Instead, time will tell you whether you are a fool or whether you are wise, right? Time will answer these questions. That's why those Nissarana stories, they are like, meditation advice. Nissarana, he is accused with certain things. He is saying, probably you are true. Sometimes I do stupid things. It appears to me that you are correct. How much confidence you should have to answer like that? You're accepting that you are a fool. Then the other person will come and say, no, I was just joking. I didn't mean it. Right? So that's how the world works. You don't have to answer. Allow the time to answer these questions. You just keep silent. Sometimes you say, probably true. Probably I am ignoring you guys. Right? That way you can respond. You have to have the strength in you. Focus on your practice. The practice will bring that strength. Otherwise, we immediately need to correct it. Immediately we need to justify ourselves. Immediately we need to become friendly with them again. That's the usual urge, the worldly urge. But here, we are not in a rush. Especially when it comes to, this practice. Especially when it comes to, let's say, monkhood. We are not in a rush. Certain people come with their time schedule. They tell us, okay, this is my schedule. You have 30 minutes, Bhante. What do you say? I say, I will meet you in 1.5 hours, right? Not now, probably evening time. We will meet. Because that's the worldly urge, right? They come with their time schedules and they try to impose it onto us. That's not how we are going to do. Instead, we just take our time. We just have that waiting list enabled. Now today the waiting room is enabled, right? Similarly, we enable the waiting list. So that way we can, majority of the questions, they will vanish with time. If you keep somebody in the waiting room long enough, they will go away. They lose interest, right? So that's what happens. Questions, just keep them on the waiting list. Accusations, just keep them on the waiting list. Just few days, keep it there. With time, you realize the question disappears. The person in the waiting room disappears, right? That happens. So that way you can continue. Focus on the formal practice. That's where the strength will develop.
Thank you, Bhante. Another question is, I do rush to do things, even a job or even to answer something. I do rush. That is one of my characters, which I'm trying to minimize or to get rid of it. But it is merely because I feel I am not mindful at that time. Is that right?
No,
I rush into things.
We don't want to slow down everybody. Certain people, they have certain energies, right? Depending on the energy, you have to function, right? It's fine that you rush, but you have to make sure that you are choosing properly. If you rush and make it a mess, then no point, no, right? If you rush and still you can manage the situation, then it's fine. For example, even myself, I am not slowly, mindfully type of a fear person, right? If you see me walking, you will complain whether this is a monk or not, right? That's how usually depends on the people. It's their own energy, right? So there's this nice story. One of the teachers is saying, some people, they drive slowly, but still have many accidents. Some people, they drive fast, but still drive safely. So you have to check whether you are driving slowly and still having many accidents, or whether you are driving fast and you are able to manage without accidents. So we don't want to slow down everybody. Slowly, mindfully, silently. The SMS, we use it. We use it to introduce mindfulness. But the SMS is not our theme. That's not what we are doing, right? Some people start from 5 years ago till today, they talk only about SMS. That's not how we do, right? SMS is just to introduce the idea. But with time, you find your natural rhythm. And if I try and change it, if I try and change your natural rhythm, that's my fault. Because various people, they have various energies. So that's your natural rhythm. You can't really change it. Right? So you have to identify whether rushing is okay as long as you are doing the proper thing. You are not making a mess out of it. So that you have to verify yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante. Theruwan Saranai.
Thank you, Hirante. And thank you, Bhante. And that was quite relevant to most of us. And it is also the expectation of other people that we respond really fast, unlike a few years ago, well, a decade ago, where they expected us to respond a little bit late. So we are a little bit worried about this meeting that expectation these days as well. So it's good to know. Thank you. There is another question from Rajika. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you, Sonali. It's not a question actually. Sarai Bante, I thought of sharing something for the Hiranti's question. As she said, like she's rushed to do things, and Bante answered that it's like we all have the natural rhythm. But with my own practice, I have noticed something. I'm also a person that I always do things very in a rush. I respond in a rush, and then later I sometimes think and worry, I shouldn't be responding that way. With my mindfulness practice, I find sometimes I, instead like doing things, I'm still doing it in that my own rhythm, but especially when I'm dealing with others and when I'm angry or when I'm sad, before I express my feelings, I feel like I tend to spend more time before doing any action or before responding to that the incident. So that way I feel like I'm making less mess. So I just want to share that experience with the Hiranti and Bante and everyone. Bante, if you can give me more advice on that, I really appreciate. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you for adding your experience. As you mentioned, now if you are making a mess out of a situation, there's no real rush, right? You can take your own time, and it's better not to react that way. And with time, if you feel like that you are more able to respond, you are more able to respond wisely, then of course, then take your time. That's what I meant when I answered her. Now, you can drive fast, but you have to check whether you are making many accidents. Then there's no point, right? As long as you can manage, then you're okay. So with practice, let's say, initially you also slow down, Rajika. You also slow down and try to, respond wisely. It's okay. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to allow this mind to recover from these emotional thoughts, right? So that's fine. That's fine. You allow the mind to recover. You try to be more resilient, right? That way, gradually, you develop confidence. You develop this ability. And probably when you practice for a longer period, you realize now you don't have to wait that long. Earlier, you had to wait 1 hour or 1 day or 1 month to respond wisely. But now, you can do it much faster. You don't have to wait. That waiting time is reducing. That's what I meant when I say that you have to find your own balance. If you are rushing and still able to manage, then it's fine. If you have difficulty, then take your time, slow it down. Gradually, you realize the waiting time is reducing. That's the strength that we are growing with time. That's that way we will keep practicing. And you guys have to share your own experiences more and more.
Thank you very much, Bante, for that advice. I didn't argue with the opinion or your advice. I just wanted to share with my personal experience with Hiranti Swami Maharaj. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rajika. I don't see any more questions. I've got a quick question, Bhante, not related to the ones we've been listening to before. It's to do with mindful walking. Since it's very cold in the UK at the moment, my daily routine is to get out of bed and put my socks and my slippers on immediately. So when I did the mindful walking, I had many layers on my feet. So I'm just wondering whether actually feel more grounded, should I actually inconvenience myself a little bit and take my socks and shoes off before I walk? I'm still inside the house, but the heating hasn't come on as yet, so I put many layers on. That's my usual practice, but I just wondered whether I should, whether it'll be easier for me to feel. I do feel the floor, but obviously it's through many layers. I like wearing shoes in the house. But is it better to take off these layers to feel it while I'm doing the working meditation, is the question.
No, that's fine. You have to adjust to your weather situations. It's okay. And you just try to practice mindfulness. You still feel the sensations of walking. You still feel the layers pressing against the ground. So that's fine. You don't have to, with these extreme weather conditions, you don't have to, torture yourself. That's not the idea. But when you are able, you can walk, of course, barefoot if possible. That's okay. Yesterday somebody came from Italy, and as soon as he came, he's a known person. As soon as he came yesterday evening, we did some work. So sweating for hours and hours. Then towards the end of the work session, he mentioned, "Bhante, after a long time, I grounded today." I grounded. I was working among people. I didn't have time to sweat. I didn't have time to, walk barefoot. So just arriving to Sri Lanka, I grounded very well, working for hours and hours, he's saying. So that's how we are. When we are able, of course, we like to sweat. Of course, we walk barefoot. But when the extreme weather conditions are there, you don't have to torture yourself. That's fine.
Right. Thank you, Bhante. I don't see any more questions, any more raised hands. I think it's time to hand back to Namanta to continue with the rest of the program. Thank you.
Sonali, I can't see Namanta in the Zoom meeting at the moment.
I can actually see him, but he's seems
back up the Zoom is there. But anyway, so I think our next part is share the beginner's guide with the participant. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he has shared it on that, but it is the next agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do that on behalf of him. I'll share the beginner's instructions that Bhante has prepared for all of us. Sonali, can you see?
It's yeah. We can see that.
Yeah. As Bhante mentioned, like we all talking about the mindfulness, and I believe all are human. Despite all our limitations, we have created among us the race or religion or the skin color, whatever, or despite all those limitations, we all can practice mindfulness. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter which race or the religion you follow. It's about being at the present moment. So we have developed few videos to guide you all. We have mentioned 2 videos here, one for mindful walking and the other one for mindful sitting. But if you think this is something that you should try, you should find some time per day, every day. At least you can start from 5 minutes, and then you can gradually develop your time. So this will give you the basic instructions, these 2 videos. We have already added those videos to our chat section, so you can follow that through the chat. And then the most important thing is practice, allocate some time every day and practice it. So once you completed 2 hours practicing each mindful walking and sitting, you can write your experience while you're walking. What did you feel in your touching points, or when you are doing sitting meditation, sitting mindfulness? What did you find in did you feel your breath or your posture or your rising and falling in your tummy, or whatever the experience? You can write according to your understanding, and you can send it to our Google form or the email address. We have mentioned everything in the chat section, and either you write your report or not, you can still join every Saturday. Melbourne time, we conduct the program at 6:30 p.m. And Sri Lankan time 1 p.m. So you can join the program. And 2 things important: allocate time every day and practice mindfulness. Start from today. It doesn't matter if 5 minutes. Gradually you can increase the time. And the second important thing is write your experience and share with us. So then the Venerable Bhante will give us all the guidance we need. And it will encourage, it will show you the path if you are doing something wrong, or the Bhante will correct you. The other important part is it will encourage the rest of our participants as well to follow the mindfulness practice. I think that's it for the guidance. Now it's time for us to listen to Bhante for his daily talk. Before that, actually, I want to welcome, we got 2 new participants in the program today, so I warmly welcome them to the program as well. And I wish they will continue to practice every day and join our program every week. I'll hand over the mic to Bhante for the mindful talk about the mindfulness.
Okay, everybody, I think we can take some time to discuss about the practice a little bit more. Now, when we are living our lives, usually in this new age, we have so many material things. When you sit in front of a computer, when you go outside, you can purchase so many things. You have so many material wealth in this world. So that's how most countries are. That's how most people try to live their lives. But although the material wealth is there, although it's available, most of the people, they suffer from emotional poverty, or they suffer from emotional starvation. And you can see this in this world. Although they have the money, although they have good families, although they have the wealth that they need, still they are not happy in their mind. You can see that they really suffer. Sometimes they can't sleep at night. Sometimes they develop certain addictions as self-medicating themselves. They try to, probably not consciously, but subconsciously, they try to self-medicate. Some people, they self-medicate with various addictions, such as social media. All the time they are on social media. It appears that this is the reasoning that creates a mess in their life. But most of the time, there is a deeper reasoning. maybe some kind of a family problem that they don't want to deal with. So they are self-medicating themselves with social media. Some people, they are addicted to drugs. From the outside, it feels like drugs, that's what create the difficulty in this person's life. But the origin, the root, probably some deeper issue that they are trying to avoid with that usage. Some family problem that they are trying to avoid with that usage. Or maybe they are addicted to, some people, they are addicted to various other things. Various things, the worldly things. Some are workaholics, right? Their work, profession is the only thing in their life. Some are with various other addictions. Some are addicted to food. They say you can eat and eat, but nothing will ever fill that void. That emotional starvation that you feel, you can't fill it with food. Of course you eat. Of course the bodies become fat, but still the starvation won't end. Right? So these are ways that certain people, they self-medicate themselves. They try to fill that void with something. They try to reduce that difficulty or the starvation that they feel. In this world, so many material wealth is there, but emotionally, poverty has taken over. So when we come to this practice, we recommend it as a solution to these difficulties, this emotional starvation that people are facing. We recommend this as a solution. Initially, just at the first sight, you don't feel like this is a solution, because this is a very simple practice. And when you really think about it, when you listen to it, you don't feel the depth of it. Most people, they just ignore it. They just say, what's the purpose of being aware? How can it solve our problems? That's their usual complaint. But with time, if you are ready to take that advice, if you are ready to listen to that person, then of course you might get something. You might hear that this practice works. This practice works. And again, it is recommended as a solution to these difficulties that we are facing. So if you feel like practicing, then you take some time. You start with your formal practice. That we recommend mindful walking, mindful sitting. You don't have to practice whole day. Instead, you just reserve some time, probably like 20 minutes of walking and 20 minutes of sitting as formal practice. Daily you try to do this. Again and again you try to do this. You try to make it a part of your daily schedule. And if you have strength to practice for a few weeks, then you start to see that this practice, it changes your mind. It changes the way it works. It changes the behavior of your mind. And you start to feel, although these issues are there, you don't suffer so much. Although the family problems, the difficulty is there, you are able to manage, you are able to navigate among them. So that strength will develop gradually. Gradually, you realize that your mind is becoming wealthy. That starvation is gradually reducing. That experience anybody can have. Now, yesterday somebody was asking, who can practice this? Does it work on everybody? So I told him that if you are human, then it works. We are addressing to the capacity of the humans, and if you are human, it will work. So you have to spend some time. You have to have the stamina to continue with this practice for a few weeks. And when you practice, it's important that you get advice from a trustworthy person. You have to get advice from a person you feel like getting advice. You can get advice and get that assurance that you are practicing properly. Because although you are walking, although you are sitting, we don't know whether you are practicing right. So you have to share your meditation experience that you can present in a written format. And when we hear, we can probably add some things to it. We can show the different aspects of it. That way, again, you go and practice. Again, after few days, week, you come back with another report. Again, you listen to the discussion. Again, go and practice. That way, you are gradually continuing with your practice, knowing that you are progressing in the proper way. And within few weeks, within few days, of course, you can see the results. Of course, you can see that starvation is reducing. Although maybe you don't have so much material wealth, still you are peaceful, you are wealthy in your mind. That's what matters. That's the most important thing in this world. Otherwise, of course, you can have so much money. Of course, you can have so much worth. But what's the point if you are suffering? What's the point if you can't sleep at night? So you have to make sure that you are acquiring the proper wealth. Proper wealth is the wealthy mind, not the material wealth. So you have to distribute some time towards that. Probably 20 minutes of sitting, 20 minutes of walking is a good start. Gradually, you can increase it a little bit. We recommend probably like 2 hours per day. That's the best if you can do. And with time, you realize even day-to-day activities you can do with somewhat mindfulness, right? So that way you improve, that way you develop, and you can really see that this starvation is reducing. You become healthy, you become wealthy in your mind. That will come with time, that you can experience yourself with time. And when it happens, you realize the world is perfect. The people in my life, they are perfect. I have the perfect job, right? So everything is perfect when you meditate, when you change your within. That's why Rumi is saying, yesterday I was smart, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. That is one of the popular poems from Rumi. He's saying, today I am wise, so I am changing myself. I'm not trying to change the other people. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to advise other people. Instead, you change yourself. You advise yourself. You make the changes within. And when that happens, you feel like the entire world, it's perfect. It's perfect. I have the perfect job. I have the perfect family members. I have the perfect life. Because you change within. When that change happens, you feel like the entire world is meditating. It's the change that's happening within, but you feel like the outside people are changing. That's how it feels. That's how it feels. You feel like outside people are meditating. They are behaving better, not hurting me so much. That's how you feel. Or you feel my job is better. Now we have more free time. That's what you think. Or you think the country is better. Now we have a new leadership. The country is the same, even going further down. But still, you feel that you have peace in your mind. You have wealth in your mind. So that's what matters. Even some people, they spend an entire lifetime, but still they suffer. Even at their deathbed, they complain, they worry. Various things are there. So you have to make sure that this is the task that you have to do in this life. You can't really avoid it. You can of course postpone, but one day you have to deal with this problem. When that day comes, you have to make sure that you are not too late. You have to make sure that you are not on your deathbed. You have to make sure that you are not suffering with some kind of illness. Earlier, you have to start your practice. Earlier, you have to prepare, because one day, you have to face this. So you take your time. You take time when you are healthy. You take time when you are young. Try to develop this capacity. Try to develop this ability. Never too late. You can start today. Still can do. You can, if you are willing, you can start today. If you are postponing, if you are saying tomorrow I'll do, if you are saying some other place I'll do, then I am accusing you, you won't do. Because if you are starting, you have to start today. If you are practicing, you have to practice here. That's how, here and now. That's where the practice is, not in the future, not in some other place, not in the past, not in some other place. Here and now, that's the practice, right? So try to develop that practice, and you realize when that emotional wealth appears, you realize, I have done something extremely wonderful for myself, not for other people. Not for the community, but for yourself. You have done something wonderful. You have acquired something wonderful. And when you are wealthy within, of course, that wealth overflows to the outside world. Of course, that wealth overflows to the family members. Of course, that wealth overflows to the co-workers. So that's how even the entire world is benefiting from your wealth, your internal wealth. So that's the idea I want to give today. I encourage you to practice more and more. And if you come with your experiences, then we can, of course, discuss further. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Bhante, for that insightful token mindfulness. Apologies for dropping out. I think so today we had the in-session mindfulness session, and then went on to the Q&A, and then we went on to Bhante's talk after a slight introduction there on how to commence mindfulness practice. So I hope that you have all learned something to apply in the weeks ahead in your own practice to achieve mindfulness and all the benefits that come with this practice. So if there is any person who wants to raise a question on the talk itself, since we have a few minutes, your own practice or the talk itself to Bhante, please raise a Zoom hand and we will provide time for that question. All right, I think there is no one raising Zoom hand, so I will move on to wrap up the session for today. I would like to thank Venerable Bhante Homagama Dhamma Kusala Thero for representing Nissarana Vanaya Forest Monastery and taking the time and putting in the effort to be present in today's session, and also to add value to all of us through the question and answers, the in-session practice, and also the talk itself. So thank you, Bhante, and we wish the good merits again go on to improve Bhante's own practice. And I would also like to mention with gratitude Most Venerable Bhante Udairagam Dhammajiva Mahathero, the Chief Abbot of the Nissarana Vanaya Forest Monastery, for insightfully requesting this program to be, thereby creating the opportunity for us to learn mindfulness this way. I would also like to thank all the organizers who have initiated this program and who are working towards sustaining the program and its quality and content as it is, so that we all can practice this and gain many benefits of it. I would also like to thank and share merits with all the participants who are participating and thereby giving us the justifiable cost to continue on with the program each Saturday. So with that, I think we can wrap up the program. If anyone has a question on the program itself, there is a bit of time to make a comment or for a suggestion. If you want, I can give you half a minute. Yes, I think we can wrap up the session for today. I hope that all the learnings you gained in today's session will be applied in the coming weeks. And I would like to wish you a happy and mindful week ahead, and hope to see you same time next Saturday with the same format of the session of the program. Thank you. Thank you very much for your participation. I will end the Zoom session now and hope to see you next week.